Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ciarra and I'm a traditional and digital artist who mainly does fantasy inspired illustrations, but I also do some not safe for work artwork as well, which you can find via the various links down in my description. But today we are jumping back into my render sketchbook here, which if you guys are familiar with this, you would have seen it in my last video where we were tackling a review of the Ohuhu pastel marker set. And so we're kind of doing a part 2 to that. I also do want to mention, if you're curious about the stickers here on my sketchbook, these are actually all stickers that I created. If you're interested in seeing that more, check out my Ko-fi link. And I also have one of the stickers here. But last time I had this sketchbook out, we were going and coloring this illustration of Star Butterfly, and I thought it'd be nice to do a accompanying sketch on the other side here of Marco. But what we are doing different this time is, instead of using the Ohuhu markers again, I thought it'd be fun to use my Copic sketch markers. That way we can get a side-by-side comparison of the colors and whatnot. So the one thing, disclaimer, I will say in this regards is the Ohuhu markers are a little bit of a disadvantage because I definitely have way more color range with my Copics just because I've been collecting them longer. But I will of course share with you guys all of the supplies that I'm mainly using, and if I grab any other additional colors, I will introduce those somewhere in the video. But let's go ahead and jump into the supplies I'm going to be using to do this illustration of Marco. Alright, let's get into the art supplies I'm going to be using. Obviously, we're going to be using the render sketchbook. For the inking, as always, I will be using my Micron fine liner pens here. For the background colors, to sort of carry on, I tried to pick Copic colors that matched as closely to the ones that we had initially with Star here. And the colors I will be using are B12 Ice Blue, R81 Rose Pink, BV01 with Viola, B63 with Light Hydrangea, and B66 Clematis. For Marco's clothes, I'm mainly going to be using R17 Lipstick Orange, R08 with Vermilion, C2 with Cool Gray, and C3 Cool Gray. For Marco's skin, I'm going to be mainly using E11 Barley Beige and E13 with Light Suntan. For Marco's eyes, we're going to be using E57 with Light Walnut. And for his hair, we're going to be using E27 Milk Chocolate and E29 with Burnt Umber. So these are the primary markers that I'm going to be using and colors to do this illustration, but I could potentially be grabbing some additional ones as I'm in the middle of working on it. And once again, if I do add in more, I will fill you guys in on what those are. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the inking process.
Alright, so voiceover time. Since I'm working on the inking process here, which, sorry if my hand gets in the way a little bit sometimes, but generally speaking, as far as additional supplies that I did end up using for this illustration, like colors and such, I only ended up adding 2 more, which was C1, which was another cool gray, and then E95. I also did use a white gel pen and a different metallic pink gold gel pen for just some final details towards the end. The overall length that this whole process of filming took was 1 hour and 16 minutes, which I ended up compressing down into just 9 minutes. So just to give you an idea of kind of how that works with filming and such. But let's tackle the main question here. Obviously, when my whole intention with this was basically to have the Ohuhu markers side by side with the Copic markers to get an idea of which do I think is better. Now, honestly, I have to say that, again, a little bit, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the Ohuhu markers were going to be at a disadvantage because obviously I have more of the Copics to do a lot more with. Because I've been collecting those for a lot longer and I have more of the colors. I only have the pastel set for the other type of marker, which doesn't give a huge range of variation with what you can do with the color, but just kind of looking at these side by side, I definitely think that the Copics have obviously a little bit more of an intense color, and just with how they behaved on this particular sketchbook, because this is a special type of sketchbook, as I mentioned in the original video, because this is the render sketchbook, which is specifically made for markers. It's meant to be completely bleed proof, which so far that has been the case, where none of the markers I've used have bled through onto the other side, which is pretty cool. The one thing I did notice while I was working on Marco in this case was if I went over my line work with using the microns, obviously is what I used for the ink, I did notice maybe just the tiniest bit of smudging, but that might just be because I didn't wait a super long time for the ink to dry. So it might just be that, if you're going to ink stuff on this particular sketchbook, maybe wait a day before going and inking over it, just to make sure that, nothing ever smudges even a tiniest bit. But overall, I do think that the Copics were a little bit easier to blend on this paper than maybe the Ohuhu markers. I don't know if that's just kind of my imagination. I'm just going to have to obviously use the Ohuhu markers again in this sketchbook for a different illustration. But I mean, if I were to try to tell any of you of which one you should buy, I really think that the Ohuhu markers are perfectly fine. I think they do pretty well. I think they are, a good substitute for a Copic, because obviously Copics are pretty expensive to purchase unless you can find them somewhere cheaper online or in a shop or something. Most of the time you're going to be paying anywhere from $5 to $7 for them, which $5 is on the lower and cheaper range. So it's all really what is in your budget, but I think that both of them are fairly good markers. It's just, I think the Copics do have a little bit of an advantage still, because something about the color seems to be maybe in a way less, I'm going to use a watercolor term here, chalky. Maybe that's the term I want to use, but yeah, that was this coloring process. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and remember to check out all my links down below if you want to follow me and see what I'm doing next, and comment and let me know what I should draw next. What would you like to see? More fan art characters? Leave those suggestions in the bottom. See you next time.